Atrial fibrillation is an irregular heartbeat. You normally
Got that
associate,
one. Yep.
yeah, normally associate with older people and heart attacks.
Or mature.
The toughest Ironman race been on record. 100% humidity, no cloud cover, no shade. You literally were watching people on the run course fall over. Most people back up their schedule. It is meeting after meeting after meeting after meeting. They don't prepare. They rock in. They got a piece of paper thrown in front of them. They kind of look at it quickly and go, okay, what are we doing next? People are ready for it is CEO legacy. And so that is what mark you're going to leave on the world. What is your real why and purpose?
This episode is brought to you by Nail It and Scale It, the world's leading fast growth program for businesses. If you have ever wanted to grow your business faster than what you can right now, if you need to make more revenue, if you need more leads, if you need more clients, if you need to know how to plan your business in a strategic way in order to hit big goals, if you need to learn how to scale your business and grow your team and your business so that you have more freedom, then this program is for you. Imagine 3 days immersed with me where we cover all aspects of business, but we do it from an immersive but also an execution standpoint. We execute every step of the way. And we're looking at 5 key areas. We're looking at your psychology. We're looking at your marketing, your sales, your leadership, and we're looking at your planning and how we integrate these 5 key areas to grow your business and your brand quickly. So if you'd like to find out more information, kerwinray.com.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is my absolute pleasure to welcome to Unstoppable today, Craig Johns. How are you, Craig?
Oh, it's good. I'm good. Thank you. It's great to be on the podcast.
Mate, it's great to have you here. And mate, I've been going through when your brief, or I should say your bio, was put in front of me a couple of months ago. I was actually quite interested. You've got a bit of a bio there, mate. Now I know we're going to go into that today, but you started off as an elite athlete. You competed at the Ironman level, World Championship triathlete level. Mate, you've kind of done an enormous amount, but you've come full circle. You now do a lot, obviously, in the corporate space as well. It's a pretty epic journey that you've had, but I'm curious from our perspective. Everyone says, where did it all begin? But when you tell your story, like, where does it all begin in the context of where you are now? How did we get here?
Good question. So I grew up on a farm in Taranaki in New Zealand. It's a very kind of relaxed part of the world, and obviously very green. And I grew up in a family full of athletes and coaches. So my granddad was a great cricket player and coach, and then on the other side, my other granddad was in field hockey, and dad was just full of sport when he wasn't working on the farm. And so performance was always there, and there was just this massive competitiveness inside our family, whether it was a card game or chipping golf balls around the backyard at Christmas time or whatever it may be. There was always competition on. I went to a very small school. And when I say small, there were 28 children from the ages of 5 to 12 when I first arrived, and there were 7 when I left. And it was this fascinating place where you got to learn leadership at a very young age. So as a 5-year-old, you'd have, maybe the 10 or 12-year-olds who were actually teaching you in the class. And then as you went through the ages, you started teaching those below you and working with those above you. And so I was talking to a friend about this recently.
That's actually the Montessori philosophy. The Montessori work in 3-year age brackets, so that you've got someone below that you can teach, someone at your own level that you can peer relate, and someone above you who can teach you and they can mentor you. That's really interesting.
Yeah, so it was a fascinating world to be in, and you were learning across and below and above, and just I think that really grounded me from a leadership point of view. Sport was when I wasn't
There's
at
some big
school.
words to use at such an early age, though. Wouldn't you agree? So did you start demonstrating leadership traits early in life as a result of being surrounded by so much competitiveness? Or at the time, was it just you being a kid and getting out there and, having a red hot go and then just working it out as you went?
I didn't think of leadership at the time, but yeah, as you said,
Yeah.
red hot go. And for me, I was just so dedicated to succeeding in whatever I did. And,
Yeah.
whether that was being first to finish um, a test at school, or whether it would be to, whatever ball or bat or swimming pool was thrown in front of me, I wanted to be the best and finish first. And it was from a humble point of view, but I just had that real desire, and that just continued all the way through to where I am now.
And so when you were young, obviously you were surrounded by a plethora of different sports, but you're in New Zealand. So I'm going to assume that there's limited access to what you can compete in. So what was the first competitive sport that you got yourself into?
So swimming as a 3-year-old,
Okay.
and so I was kind of thrown in the pool, and I suppose the competitive aspect probably took over around 5 or 6 years old, where I started to actually do some competition. So really
No
young.
shit. At 5 or 6.
Mm.
Yeah, right.
And
Tadpole.
no pushing from the family. It was just they wanted me to get in the water and get used to it, and I just, that competitiveness was there. Field hockey as well at the age of 5. Actually, I don't even think I was 5. I think my sister was in a field hockey team that my dad was coaching, and I just tagged along and wanted to have a crack. And so I had this beautiful aspect of an individual sport with
Wow.
swimming and
Yep.
this team sport with hockey. And hockey kind of progressed, and that was kind of probably the lead one for a while. And when I got to the age of 13, I made premier senior men's team. So I was very young. And that team is quite phenomenal. It holds a record in New Zealand for the longest streak without losing a game in any team sport in New Zealand. And
Wow.
if I, we're not sure exactly the number. It's somewhere between 240 and 280 games without losing one. And
Yeah, wow.
so I had 5 years with them. We never lost a game, obviously. And
Wish the All Blacks could say that, I bet. I
they're
had to
not
put it in
far
there, sorry.
behind. They're not far behind. And so to get that component at such a young age, to be in that team of people, sometimes we only had 10 players, it's 11 a side game. We had 10 players, we'd still find a way to win or draw. And it was just an incredible environment. And it wasn't about beating another team. It was always about how could we progress the game? How could we make the game better? And it was a fascinating for sort of 15 people in a town of 5,000 people that would win the premiership competition every time. And they went 16 years straight and I think now have won the 23 of the last 24 premier seasons. So that was a pretty surreal experience to go through.
That's pretty phenomenal. And is this where you learnt? Because obviously from hockey, you then progressed into other sports. What came after hockey?
Uh, so hockey, I finished at 17. So if I come back a
Yep.
little bit, at the age of 9, I did my first triathlon, and
Right, so you were doing both concurrently.
yeah,
Yeah,
and
right.
and so I talked about a town of 5,000 people, and that's including sort of regional around it on the farms as well. And there were national champions in triathlon by that time as juniors, and people winning races. And so it was just, you went, okay, I went swimming. Or, well, what else do we do? Oh, well, you run at school and you bike to school, and it was just a natural progression. So I got into triathlon, and I'd kind of just do it when I wasn't swimming. And I got to the age of 16, and that was when I had my first heart problems. And I was actually told to give up sport. And as you can
What
probably
were the
hear,
heart problems you were identified at 16?
so I had atrial fibrillation and vasovagal syncope. So atrial fibrillation is an irregular heartbeat. You normally
Got that
associate,
one. Yep.
yeah, normally associate with older people and heart attacks.
Or mature, better looking, yeah.
And they couldn't understand why I was having it at that age. And
Mm.
I spent a bit of time in hospital trying to figure it out, and with a lot of
Yeah, right.
cardiologists. And me being me, it was like, unless you can show that it's going to kill me, I'm going to find a way to get back to sport and give it a crack. And so within a year, I was both New Zealand teams or New Zealand squads for hockey and triathlon. And just that's been the rest of my life since, has been managing the heart and then doing whatever I can the best
That's
as
so
best as
interesting.
possible.
So at what point did you realize that you develop a level of grit and that ability to be able to push through that was beyond, so many other people around you? Because I'm going to assume that because you were surrounded by such an elite level of performance of a family, it would have just seemed like normal to perform at a very high level, and you go in and you get into hockey, you exceed in that, triathlons, you exceed in that. At what point did you take a step back? Because again, you're in a town of 5,000 people. You maybe have got a limited exposure. Did you go, shit, I'm actually pretty I'm pretty hardy. I'm at the top of my game considering.
I don't know if grit ever come across my mind. It was just like, to me,
Really?
it just felt like that's what you do. That's what you do in life. And
Yeah, okay.
there was a point, and it is probably my deep why around what I do now and have pretty much done my whole life. And that is, I did struggle a bit with why aren't people healthier, happier, and hungrier for success?
Yeah.
Because for me, that was normal. And I couldn't understand why some people would just go with the flow and waste their talent. And that has been a key driver to everything I've done in life.
Yeah, right. And so at what point did the condition start becoming serious enough to start preventing you from either competing or or even training?
So 2000, where are we? So it'd been about 21 years. I was 21 years old. And so I
Okay.
was trying to faint 3 or 4 times a day for a whole month. So I couldn't finish my final exams at uni. I actually one day was swim teaching in the pool with an 18-month-old kid when it happened. And I managed to
Oh,
roll out and put the kid on the side before I blacked out and couldn't drive. And they couldn't figure out what was going on at that point. It was separate to the atrial fibrillation and vasovagal syncope that I still get now. And so there was some electrical fault, and all I could do was stick in a pacemaker. And so I've had a pacemaker since then. At that point, I decided to take a break from sport and really focus on my career. So I was doing a lot of work around sports science with some of the professional teams, Olympic teams in New Zealand, and coaching, the top junior swim club in New Zealand, and surf lifesaving. So didn't like to kind of take a break from kind of a full-on life, but for me it was
yeah.
like, let's focus on that. And it took probably 3 years and 17 kgs later before my friend motivated me to go, you know what, let's give triathlon a crack again. Why don't you sign up for an Ironman in a year's time? And uh,
And
that
then
was
you're
that
back
was the
into it.
second coming of sport.
And then what happened then? Did you go? You obviously got back in, or did you stay in, or the heart just pushed you out again?
So where are we? So I lost 17 kgs in that first year. I
Right.
actually just moved to Taiwan, so I went from sort of cool in New Zealand conditions to hot and humid, and a completely new environment. And it was, just loved being there. Had a really good build up to the first Ironman a year later, until a week before, and I managed to pick up hemorrhoids. And
Oh, what a
so
shit!
I
As
went
a
into
triathlete, that's not fun.
no, not fun. So I
Fuck
managed
me.
so I managed to, and I was in Austria, so I didn't know too many people that spoke English and was staying in a
Yodelay-hoo-hoo. How do you explain that one to a doctor? Ah. You get grapes and hold them.
and so I had a hemorrhoid operation, I think 6 days out from
Oh,
from
wow.
the event. And I was like, look, am I going to be okay on race day? And they put these, what I describe as elephant nappies on for 3 or 4 days. And then they said, no, you'll be right. And I got in the race, had a fantastic start, was, sort of in the top 20 out of the water, and felt really good, and got to 50K on the bike. And next minute I just start vomiting. I couldn't keep any water down. I couldn't keep any food down, and managed to get off the bike and went, look, I'm still feeling good here. I haven't had the best bike, but I feel okay. And all right, let's keep going. And I remember getting 21K into the run and went, I have got to get some food in. There's no way I'm going to last unless I get food. So I sat down at the aid station, and it was quite ironic. It was right next to where the finish line was. And so I could hear the announcers going, congratulations, Reina Tissink from South Africa. You are our 2005 Ironman Austria champion. And I'd been training with him a little bit in the couple of weeks leading up to it, and kind of having dinners and stuff. And so I was like, yep, heard that. And then I can't remember anything else until I woke up in the medical tent. And I remember this clearly. I asked them, I said, how did I go? And they looked at me and they were kind of laughing, going, what do you mean? And I was like, no, how did I go? And they said, look, mate, we found you at the 23K mark, running down the wrong road, telling us that you're telling us to leave you alone because I was in second place and I was catching the winner.
That's gold.
So that was and
Wow.
and
What
that was
induced that level of what happened? Just
so
delusion, heat stroke, everything combined.
Just obviously the hemorrhoid operation, the body just wasn't fully
Yeah, right.
comprehending it, and maybe some of the medication, I don't know. And
Wow, that's
uh,
amazing. Okay. And so what happens next? You're looking at a doctor, she's laughing at you?
and I think, and then it sets in mentally. The hardest thing about someone who, actually, it doesn't matter who you are. The hardest thing about an Ironman race is, there's disappointment if you don't do as well as you want to. People put so much expectation on, but not being able to finish one is even harder because there's so much that goes into it. I mean, you
Yeah,
sacrifice, you make choices based around
yeah.
I want to perform, and as I said, I lost 17 kgs, and here I am going into Ironman, and you don't finish it. Now that sits in your head for a whole year until you do the next one, so it haunts you. And so
Mm.
I was pretty driven after that to make sure when I went back the second time that we finished, and we finished well.
And you went back another 3 times after that, is that right?
Yeah, so 3 times, another time in Austria, then
Yep.
did Ironman China, which is the toughest Ironman race that has been on record. 33% of the field did not finish. It was 42 degrees, 100% humidity, no cloud
Oh,
cover, no shade. And you literally were watching people on the run course fall over.
wow.
And I I had I was fifth out of the water, in great shape, ninth at 90K, and then just I could feel the heat affecting me, and I felt okay, but my legs just wouldn't move, and I just cruised along, got to the end of the bike ride, and I remember jumping off the bike and running along the I don't know if you call it running. I was absolutely sprinting across the concrete. It was so hot, it was blistering, and I sat down in transition, which I never do. And I remember sitting there, eating a banana, putting on sunscreen, and just clicked them on. And you know what? I'm just going to go for it because if all else fails, I can walk across the finish line. And so I went from 135th uh, to 35th in the end, and I think I had the 10th fastest run, which was pretty slow in Ironman terms, which is 3 hours 50. But when you understand that the first person who normally runs 2 hours 44 ran 3 hours 31, you can tell how tough it was. And,
Yeah.
and so that was fascinating, and that got me to Kona, the world champs. And then kind of the second medical thing really kicked in, and that was my hip. I had osteoarthritis, porosis, bone spurs, cyst formation. I had no labrum left. And because of the pacemaker, they couldn't even run an MRI on it because of
Oh,
the
shit.
the
Yeah.
magnetic aspects. And so I ended up doing the race. I was at a point where, when you look at the photos, my back's all kind of crunched up when I'm on the bike because I'm trying to protect the hip, and I could only run 5 minutes some days before it would give up. And it ended up, for me, I was really happy with the race. I ended up finishing it, and
Yeah.
I got one more year. And then the doctors said, "That's it. You have to give up." And at 29, most people go, "Oh, that might have been crushing," but for me, it was relief. I was
Yeah.
sick of waking up in tears every night, and I was probably ready for another new chapter in my life.
And you end up getting the hip replacement, and how did that take?
Yeah, good.
Yeah. It
uh, yeah, no, it went well. I was off crutches within a couple of days, and back then that was pretty much unheard of. It would normally be 6 weeks, and I think I ran a triathlon camp about 8 weeks later, and we did over 600 kilometers of riding. So
No
re-
shit.
recovered pretty quick, but that was the end of my triathlon days.
Yeah, you're a beast, aren't you? And so from there, obviously, your competitive days were done. Do you still train much anymore?
I try and get out on the mountain bike.
Okay.
5 days a week, sometimes swim. Haven't done obviously with COVID, but
Yep.
yeah, love the mountain bike. It allows me to switch off from life, from everything. It's probably one of the only things that I can do that, along with golf. So I normally play competitive golf as well.
Yeah, right. What are you swinging off, my friend?
5 or 6,
Oof,
only go.
mate, I'll have to give you a crack one day. I'm a healthy 34.
Yeah.
I'll give you a real run for your money, my friend. So from there, you obviously had the bug. You've had a background, I think, at this point. You mentioned that you were studying sports science. Um, What else did you study at university? Because I have a feeling this kind of helped with the transition of what came next. So you started coaching athletes after you retired from competition.
So I had been coaching all the way through. So
Right.
it's something
Okay.
I did from the age of 15, and so that's always
That's
been a
great.
big part of my life. I love coaching and things. Obviously, once I retired
Were you
from,
professionally coaching other athletes while
yeah,
as a competitor yourself? Yeah, right. Okay.
yeah. Yeah. So at that point, when the hip and I retired, I raced mountain bike for a couple of years as well, sort of semi-pro level and road cycling. But during that time, I was coaching. I went and coached the national team in Taiwan, which was a fascinating experience. So you have 800 athletes, all different sports. The only other foreigner there was a Belarusian boxing coach who had some very interesting strategies. Some of them spoke English, most of them could write it. And so I was fully immersed living in that environment and got a real kind of rude awakening to how things work in Asia as well. Like I'd lived there for 7 years prior, 5 years prior to it. But I started to, you had to always make it their idea. And you realize that said, yes, you're in control, but no, you weren't. They always had
Yeah.
the finger on the pulse. And so everything was set up. Yes, you're head coach, you can make all the decisions. I get in there on day one and they go, oh, by the way, we're sending the athletes you've been working with for the last 3 or 4 years. They're going with another coach to China for the next 3 months, and you've got these new athletes. And none of them spoke English apart from the word hello.
Oh, wow. Oh, that's gonna be fun.
So no translator. But what happened in that 3 months is I learned more about communication than I have in the rest of my life, and
Yeah, I
the,
can
the
imagine.
power of observation and just watching people, and you learn the subtleties because you can't ask them a question as easily as you could someone who speaks your own language. And for me, I learned to read signs. It was just a subtle shift in the eyes, subtle shift in the way someone moved. It You could feel it. You could even hear when they say swam or ran. You could listen to it, and you could understand what was going on. And that power has
Wow, what
really
an
helped me as a
education.
coach. Yeah.
Yeah. How long was that for?
So it ended up being a year that I was full on in that
Wow.
situation.
With that team.
Yeah, with the
That's
team.
incredible. And how did the team perform at the end of the year?
Yeah, pretty good. Well, we had a tough. Once I got in there, I got told, "Oh, after 6 months ago, oh, by the way, you have to have athletes in the top 10 by Asian
Right.
champs, otherwise there's no more funding." And so I'd gone from a very secure job where I was earning really good money to earning one fifth of that with the national team, and I was doing it purely for love and just love what I was doing. So we got athletes from, I think they were sitting around 17th, 18th. We got them down to 11th. We were one away from securing the funding. And it was good. It was a great 1 year with them. And then I was able to take some of those athletes on after that to win Ironman championships and
Wow,
also,
that's incredible.
perform at a high level. So it was really good.
And at what point did you cross the bridge into the business world,
Yeah.
the corporate world?
Yeah. So it was a few years later, and
Okay.
I had actually moved to Saudi Arabia. So I went from Taiwan to Saudi Arabia and decided at that point I really wanted to focus on my master's in management at that time. And so I had a really good job in Saudi Arabia where I could have 15 weeks holiday a year. Um, it was just kind of a 9 to 5 type role and earn good money, but also study at the same time without having distractions. And that's a whole different story as well. So I'm there 6 months. When we first signed the contract, my wife is from Taiwan, and a week later, they kicked out, or the prince at the time kicked out all the Chinese because if you know Saudi Arabia, you're either Muslim or you can have two religions. You can either have Muslim or you can have Christianity, and outside of that, not allowed any religion. So for me, who's not religious, I just put down Christianity on the form just to keep it nice and simple. But my wife, being from Taiwan, is obviously their natural religion is Buddhism, being from those Chinese-based countries, and yeah, the guy kicked them all out. And you had these massive economic developments going on, huge big cities funded by Chinese, and it was just within 7 days left. And so I asked the question. I said, "Look, is my wife going to be affected?" And they said, "No, she's from Taiwan. She'll be fine." And so it took went through four different visa processes and keep getting declined. And so I said, look, at that point, unless we can get a visa, I'm going to look at another role. And so I went to Thailand, got offered, always been offered a big job in Thailand, and the most amazing sport, mind, health, education, hospitality kind of integrated facility, the only one like it in the world. And they flew me in, had a look at it, and went, I'd be an idiot not to take this. And the day I flew back, I arrived in, and they said, "Oh, great news. We've been through the royal family and we've got your wife a visa." so,
Oh,
so a great dilemma. And so in that time, we sat there and I just said, look, this is what's happened while I've been away. And I said, look, my wife doesn't feel comfortable right now. I said, she's been declined, denied. How do you think she's going to feel when she comes in here when they've all been, the Chinese been removed and it's been so hard to get this? And they didn't seem to care. And so I gave them 3 months notice. They gave me 7 days to leave. And Saudi Arabia is the hard, well, was then, it's a bit easier now, the hardest place to get into and the hardest country to leave. So you pretty much, when
wow.
you turn up, you give your passport, they give you an ID, and they let you know when you can and can't leave type thing. So that was
That would have been interesting. And so it was
fascinating.
at that point you crossed over to the corporate
Yeah,
world? That's what pushed you over?
yeah, yeah. So I've always had in my life that I I love working with people, and I just found with high performance sport, it's such a narrow group of people you get to work with. And yes, it's amazing, but it's a very, very lonely, extremely lonely space to be in. And the rewards can be amazing, but there's a lot of times where you're working really hard to find that success. And so I felt with, for me, I wanted to go into the CEO space and, work as a CEO because I could have a greater effect on people. And
Mm.
so I looked at opportunities. And for me, that is, people look at me and go, your individual sport, it must, you should be comfortable with that. And I went, well, there's something part of me that wants to help more people in this world. So that's where that started.
And so what was your first gig and how did it was there a natural transition? Because a lot of people want to get into the coaching space, whether it be the business coaching, executive coaching, or otherwise. And it's not always an easy transition because you go from being an athlete, which is one discipline, and you're now working in the business space, which is a different discipline because you've got to coach, but you've also got to sell, you've got to market, you've got to generate clients. And so how did that transition take place? Was it natural or did it happen as a result of, serendipity?
So their first role in Thailand, I was so second in charge of 500 staff from 22 different countries, and a
Oh, so
massive
that gig in
facility.
Thailand, you were actually running the facility, is that right?
Yeah, yeah. So
Gotcha.
big
Okay.
change where you're managing huge
Yep.
amount of people and a lot of politics. You're dealing with a billionaire owner, amazing people in there. And, we had everyone from the Dalai Lama right through to Jensen Button Formula One to complete beginners in the sport. Just a fascinating world to work in, and you got high performance and people just wanting to get better all the time.
Wow.
So, and that was really interesting. And then we got to a point where they brought in someone else and we didn't align in our beliefs and our morals. And so I just felt it was time to leave, and hence went to Australia. So worked, and I'm still doing some work for them at the moment with Triathlon ACT. So been there 6 years, sort of running that program. And over the last year and a half, that's when I've moved into also doing coaching CEOs and executives and leaders in the, to be high performing leaders. And
And
so,
so what are the go ahead.
yeah, it's all right. So the transition to me, high performance is high performance. And
Yep.
so I've always
Well, that's what I was
been,
gonna ask you, like, what are the key things that you've brought over that you bring to a conscious level that when you work with an executive or a CEO, you go, "Right, okay, here's the model of performance." Like, what does that look like, and what do you normally take them through?
yeah, great. Good question. And there's so much transfer. And as I said, high performance is high performance. It doesn't matter who you're working with, the same basic fundamentals come into play. And so the first things that really identify with the CEOs or executives I'm working with, I'm like, do you have the four basic fundamentals of performance right first? So are you eating well? Do you exercise? Do you free your mind? And are you recovering with purpose? And so unless you've got those four things right, it doesn't matter how talented you are, your ceiling will always be limited to your talent. So if you get those four things right, then you can raise the ceiling. But until you do that, they're the limiting factors. And all those four things connect with cognitive function, with your mood, all sorts of things, as you'd be aware. And so they're the first four that I look at.
And I'm sure. So walk me through those again. There's eating, exercise, and nutrition.
Yep. So
Yep.
nutrition, exercising daily,
Yep.
freeing the mind, and recovering with purpose.
Okay. And so I'm going to assume when you're working with an executive, there's going to be a few challenges when it comes to them adopting one or two of these four things. And to me, that's the real mark of a coach is, anyone can give a framework, but how do you enroll these CEOs? Because I know you've worked with some quite large companies, but how do you enroll some of these executives and CEOs to do things that they're very well justified to say to, well, look, mate, I'd love to, spend more time exercising or more time recovering or more time eating well, but I'm a busy fucking guy, and you've got to understand I can't do that. And you and I know, well, that's not going to fly. There's got to be a change that takes place. How do you initiate that change?
Yeah, so we sit down and we talk them through around what they're currently doing, and then we ask them, okay, when you feel good, what is happening in your life? When things are going really well, what is happening in your life? What components are there? And then when it's not going well, what components aren't there? And generally, they will come up with, well, I'm not eating well, I'm not sleeping enough, I'm pushing too hard, I'm not spending enough time with the family, and I don't exercise. So once you get them to say it out loud, it generally starts to click. And then we just work on what's the most important thing first to start progressing with.
And so how do you provide that layer of accountability to people in some cases who don't have any?
So that's it. Yeah. So some people have self-discipline and other people
Yep.
need someone to provide that accountability. And it just depends on the person. Some I
Gotcha.
don't need to provide much accountability at all. They can do that themselves. They go, okay, cool. That's a goal. Let's put a goal in place and I can look after that. Others will need to check in, whether it be weekly or fortnightly, and we'll quite often put in like a little diary type thing, which allows them to track things as well. But as you know, it takes a good 6 to 8 weeks, sometimes 12 weeks for new routines to embed.
Yeah.
So we have to be with them for quite a while to get those working.
And do you ever get any real stubborn fuckers who just won't do what you ask them to do? They're high performers in their own right by their results, but you're trying to get them to adopt things that in some cases are, or change patterns that in some cases are decades old. And in those situations with those tough cookies, like is there something you have in your toolbox that you pull out for those situations?
Sometimes I just say this is not working and let them alone because they're probably never going to change. And I don't like to do that, but sometimes you just have to be honest with them. I said, unless
Yep.
you're willing to change, this is not going to work. And I'm not going to waste your money. I'm not going to waste my time. And it doesn't matter how good a CEO they are. And sometimes we need to take that next step and we need to find what their clarity of their vision is. Because unless they have absolute clarity of their vision, then they don't know how to say no. It's very easy to say yes. So I sometimes will go to that and then come back and go, okay, well, once you have clarity of your vision, it's now easy for you to say no. And then you free up more time to do the things that help you perform to a higher level. And I think that's a game changer for most people. And when you ask them about what their vision is, and if they stumble through it, if they can't actually portray that, then 9 times out of 10, you'll find that they are saying yes to everything and they overload themselves and they're not very good at saying no because they don't know why they need to say no. They don't know what they're
And
chasing.
so what's next for you? You've conquered and dominated the area of competitive sports. You've moved into coaching at the athlete level. You're now, moved into the business space. What's next from here?
So for me, it's fully focused on high performance leadership, and it's working with CEOs and emerging leaders as well, and then also in the sport world. So what has been a byproduct when I went into just focusing on the CEOs and corporates, the sport world went, we like what you're doing. Does this apply to sport? Now, I thought when I started up with breaking the CEO code, which is around, it's just as a framework for being a high performing leader. And the foundation I talked about before is just phase one. So there's 5 other phases. And so when I started doing that, they were like, okay, well, how does that work in sport? And so now I'm starting to build out frameworks for high performance sport organizations, or even a whole country, their sports system. And what's been fascinating is that coaches in sport are very good at being able to coach performance, but they're not very good at being high performing themselves, because their whole focus goes on the athlete. And
Yep.
so we're doing some quite interesting work there at the moment, and looking at how we can make sure that when they get to, say, a
Do you see
pinnacle
that as
event.
also as a common trait with CEOs, that they spend so much time developing their team that they fucking forget to take care of themselves? It's
Yeah,
very common, isn't it? Yeah.
it's massive. So a good way to kind of show this from a high performance point of view, say you've got an Olympic period of 4 years. At the beginning, the athletes are at the bottom of their performance curve, and if they get everything right, they'll be at the top of their performance curve come 4 years. When it comes to the coaches and high performance stuff, they're normally employed because they're the best at what they do. So they start at the top and then they go the opposite way, because their contracts are based on the performance of the athletes at that pinnacle event. So they don't know whether they have another another contract until those results are out most of the time. And it always finishes on that, around that time. And so what happens is they narrow their focus, they put more time into it, they forget their relationships, they forget about themselves, and they go deeper and deeper. And they actually push too hard on the athletes. And so we actually find that the best performances will happen 90% of the time, will happen about a year out when it's qualifying time, when those two graphs cross over. And and so it's about explaining to them around how we can make sure we can put them into a performance state by utilizing a lot of the skills that they use in sport. So periodization is something that they use in sport for athletes, where you go through different cycles of stress and overload, and then recovery, and then performance will drop as is stress and overload, but then will come up during recovery. So what we start to do is apply that through CEO, whether it's with the coaches, coach periodization, or with CEOs, it's CEO periodization, where we look at a 3-to-1 cycle of stress load and work, and then a 1 of recovery. And we look at that from a daily, weekly, monthly, yearly, and career basis. And most people don't even think about the career basis, but it is so important as well. And so we start to apply those principles, and that
So you
makes a big
re
difference.
you're really taking the professional athlete model and you're bringing it into the corporate space. I don't know if have you read the book The Powerful Engagement by Tony Schwartz?
No, not yet.
Similar, similar. You would love it, mate. Very much up your alley. But yeah, I follow the same philosophy because again, it's so interesting that people don't understand performance from the perspective of both sides. The one side is in competition where you get to see the results, but the other side is getting to those results, which is rest, recovery, training, nutrition. All of the critical things. And most CEOs, most employees spend 85% of their time competing, and maybe 10% of their time resting, and maybe 1% of their time training. And it's so interesting when you bring in the athletic performance model into the business environment. You actually are focused on resting people. You're turning it around. You're focusing on training people. You're focusing on competition. But yeah, like you say, what did you call it? Periodize.
Periodization.
I love it. Periodization. What a fucking fancy name. That's
Yeah.
great.
So, so the second
So what?
phase of
Yes, let's
that,
go.
so the second phase of the breaking the coach code, or breaking the CEO code, depending on who we're working with, is around performance. And there is the 3 Ps. So we've got, so we use CEO here. So CEO periodization, which we just spoke about. There's
Yep.
CEO presence. So presence is around what is your intention for the day. So how are you going to make sure that you prepare to go into a meeting, that it's not just about what information or the content, it's around, okay, what sort of energy do you need to bring, what type of performance level do you need to bring into that, what is your intention for that meeting, or the interaction, and then what outcomes you're looking for, and being able to make sure that they come in with the right body language, that they come in with the right energy levels, and that they are prepared. Because you and I both know most people back up their schedule. It is meeting after meeting after meeting after meeting. They don't prepare. They rock in. They got a piece of paper thrown in front of them. They kind of look at it quickly and go, okay, what are we doing next? And so there's no real leadership on that. And so some of the work that I've started doing with the CEOs is going, okay, what's your calendar look like? What happens if we cut out 20%, 40%, 60% of those meetings and actually prepare for them? Will we get greater results because of that? And also the byproduct of that is then you start delegating that those meetings that you think you need to be at, but probably don't, to your next level of staff or your next level of leaders, and you can empower them as well. And then the third part's around high performance habits. So CEO performance. And that's looking at a lot of things like boundaries. What are your boundaries in life? When are you on at work? When you're off? What are the cues to say, all right, well, I've now left the building and my focus is now on my family? How are you ensuring that you get enough sleep? It's bringing in some of those foundation. What are those performance habits every single day? And so those three provide a really nice ecosystem for anyone in life to be able to start to perform at a higher level.
Mate, that's awesome. And so there's two more. What are they?
Oh, so there was
Was there-
CEO periodization.
Yep. So there was, you were saying there was the 5 levels. So there
Okay,
was the
60. Okay,
foundation.
yep, cool. Yep, so that's fine. So we got foundation. We've then
Yep.
got performance. Then the third level is influence. So it's the 8 ways to
Right.
own your own influence. So it's
Yep.
still, the first 3 levels are all about yourself, being a high performing leader. Then we go to leadership, which is around being a world-class leader. And then the 5th one is leading high-performing teams. And number 6, if people are ready for it, is CEO legacy. And so that is, what mark are you going to leave on the world? What is your real why and purpose? And so for most people, we're still dealing in that kind of phase 1, 2, 3, getting into 4. And to me, unless you've got those steps right, there's no point going to legacy, because you're not going to have the leadership skills and stamina and ability and belief in yourself to actually achieve it. I've had one CEO who I've gone straight to CEO legacy. The rest were always starting at 1, 2, or 3.
Yeah, right. Fantastic. So, mate, where can people find out more information about this model that you have, breaking the CEO code?
Yeah, great. So if you go to craigjohns.com.au, so you can find information there. I also have Energy to Perform, which is NRG, the number 2, perform.com. And inside that is where we have the Active CEO podcast as well. So similar to this show, where we get to interview some amazing leaders around the world, and we can combine the philosophies of breaking the CEO code there.
And so what's next from here, mate? Is there going to be a book coming out?
Yes, we've got a book that's due for the end of this year. So it'll take you through the framework of breaking the CEO code. So that's work in progress right now.
Fantastic. Well, mate, thank you so much for coming to Unstoppable. Dearly appreciated your time and your intelligence today. Thank you so much, Craig Johns.
Thank you. It's been an absolute pleasure, and love the work that you do for the people in the business world and also leaders around the world as well. So thank you.
Thanks, Craig. I appreciate it, brother. Till next time, mate. Ladies and gentlemen, Craig Johns, and this is Unstoppable.
This episode was brought to you by Nail It and Scale It, the world's leading fast growth program for business.
There you have it, guys. Thanks for tuning into Unstoppable with me, your host, Kerwin Ray. And please do not forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel, where you get to see all of these interviews in the flesh. Share this podcast with your friends and drop me a review on iTunes. I would love to hear what you guys think, and also let you know that your comments help make sure that we keep producing killer content just like this. And if you'd like to stay up to date with all of my movements, upcoming podcasts, events, and much more, please jump onto the website kerwinray.com, and also check us out on all social media on the handle @KerwinRay. Thanks for joining us.